Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
Welcome back to the program. We've got Senator Bryan King with us from Arkansas's 5th Senate District. Senator King, welcome, sir. Thanks so much.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, and I want to thank the great patriots of Act 746 for sponsoring this particular segment. They're on a mission to educate people about constitutional carry and your rights and gun rights, and right here in Arkansas about Act 746 and how it gives us constitutional carry. And so, Brian, one of the reasons we're going to talk Arkansas political corruption here in just a minute, generally.
You mean that's been going on? Roby Brock doesn't. I mean, now he's saying something about it, but
yeah,
anyway.
it's ridiculous. I want to talk about that in a minute, but I specifically on enhanced carry, this bill that's going to get, it's putting more barriers between us and our Second Amendment rights is what it was, and yet
that's right.
It got heralded as something awesome. But you were at the Arkansas Legislative Council. The concealed handgun carry instructors and Second Amendment activists are not happy with this bill at all. So what can you tell us went down last Friday?
Yeah, and Paul, let me back up to the original debate. And I've run guns legislation before, and I've learned through mistakes and just learn from experience. And what you have to do with gun legislation, you have to go meticulously, you have to go methodically, you have to take your time, think about the situation, everything like that. That didn't happen with Asa Hutchinson. Okay, that didn't happen with Jim Hendren. And during the debate, we originally supported a bill out of the committee, and then it went to the Senate floor. Then Jeremy Hutchinson went to monkeying with it, and then there went to being a bunch of games. And then once the circus started, it's like they felt like they had to come up with something. Well, I asked Jim Hendren in a private conversation. I said, Jim, and I knew that there was going to be the train was rolling down the tracks. We knew he was going to have to do something. I said, just take your time. Let's work on it together. Maybe there's some things we can work on. Maybe I might support it in the end. I don't know. And I said, just don't pull the bill out of committee and not have a debate. Well, that's exactly what they did. And they didn't allow the committee members that are the most Second Amendment supporters in the state, Linda Collins-Smith, Gary Stubblefield, Terry Rice, and myself, to even have any debate on it. Asa Hutchinson didn't want that. Jim Hendren didn't want that. They wanted their way, and you could just see this was going to happen. So now fast forward to now that they did what's so crazy about this, and almost you want to use some other blue-collar words, is that they rushed the legislation so much, and here we are January 1st, and none of this has taken place yet. Mm-hmm. So they sit there and go, and they put it out, and the state police has to do this. Well, a lot of my instructors up here are going some of them are going Brian, I'm not going to require this training. Here we talk about occupational licensing and regulation and all this. They put a regulation on them, an unreasonable regulation that's inexcusable to put in there in the first place, to require them to do the training if they want to. Some of them just don't want to do it. I mean, they don't have the time. They don't have the amount of people that will go through it to do it. So they force that on them. Mm-hmm. The second part, which may be even the craziest thing, is this nominal fee part. And, Paul, I put up on Twitter the definition of nominal. Let me see if I can pull it up here.
Yeah, we're getting it right now and putting it up on our screen for our listeners.
It's just charged less than what it actually costs to do it. And this is from Republicans. Mm-hmm. I mean, so they put this stuff in there about nominal fees. So if you charge what it actually costs you to do it, you're a lawbreaker, according to Jim Hendren. And the bad part about this is not only did they slap the faces of the concealed weapon instructors, they also did the state police. Okay, the state police needs to be worrying about crime that obviously Jim Hendren wants to, and Asa Hutchinson want to fund more Medicaid and not prisons to keep her area safe, state safe. But so they sit there and do that because they had to put up with all the complaints. I told my CCL instructors, I said, don't complain to the state police. It was a bunch of politicians doing stupid things. So we go to Friday, and me and Josh Miller questioned Duncan Barrett on the budget, which is terrible. You have a prison director that is saying having trouble making financial commitments. In the newspaper said this, but yet we had to spend 2 hours dealing with this issue. Mm-hmm. Because of incompetence, trying to run legislation. And so it was just, the debacle continues. And then they dump the debacle on the poor state police. And then we've had to go through stuff all because they sit there and didn't think the legislation through.
Well, it seemed to me
didn't care.
It seemed to me they were trying to protect. ASA did not want a professor on a college campus to be able to carry a gun if they already had a permission slip in the form of a concealed carry. He didn't want even that. And so instead of just letting it play out, Charlie Collins just should have run his bill, made Asa veto it and own it.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted
to
protect him.
Well, and he got Jeremy Hutchison, his nephew.
Yep.
Jeremy Hutchison
Yep.
is the worst person that could be judiciary chairman. Look at his past record on running bills that are terrible. Like I said, we have a crime crisis going on, and he's been the leading guy that they've turned to down there, and it's a complete failure. Our Judiciary Committee that he has ran for the last 3 times is pathetic. And so he started, I guess, on the orders of ASA, I don't know, maybe he did it on his own, started, playing a bunch of monkey games with this thing. And, what started out as something that okay, and maybe I was going to support and go through, like I said, turned into a complete embarrassment for the state.
Yeah, it really did. The policy was not a good policy because they were only trying to cover ASA politically, and that's
right.
why everything doesn't make sense. And you have concealed carry instructors who are now thinking of just quitting altogether because the regulations are so onerous. Mm-hmm. And, and this is again, you had Jeremy Hutchison, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, saying things like, well, I don't think I wouldn't want my son, to have be able to have a weapon on a college campus. Then that whole thing started as well.
There's the easy answer to that, Senator Hutchison. That's why he's so incompetent. Don't let your son carry it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he
that's right. Yeah.
If he handles guns like he handles judiciary legislation, then no, don't let him take, we really shouldn't be, if anybody's incompetent, we shouldn't be letting Jeremy Hutchison handle judiciary legislation or run the committee.
So on Friday, I understand, is it true it was reported that Senator Gary Stubblefield made a motion to basically dismiss this whole thing or table it because it was unconstitutional, and that didn't go over too well? Yeah,
I mean, we had substitute motion of a substitute motion, and Joyce Elliott, who's obviously a different, wants to stop the whole thing. Gary wants to stop it on constitutional gun rights, and Joyce Elliott wants to just stop it altogether. And so you had 2 substitute motions, and you had a substitute motion and a substitute motion of the original. It just really was a total embarrassment in front of the people down there and the people of Arkansas. I mean, I'd sit there and say on Channel 11, the Three Stooges could have ran a better bill than what these guys did.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's just because they were taking political considerations and not actually looking at what the policy is going to be.
Yeah, they just wanted to pass something and something they could go beat their chest over.
Yeah, exactly.
In reality. And I think there were a lot of good people and a lot of good legislators that got put in a bad legislation from the core people that ran it. And I think that's what happens. And then they get in and they vote for it. But really what needs to happen, and I've said it on Twitter and everything else, and it won't happen because these guys can't admit that what they did was a total embarrassment and wrong, what they did and how they did it. But what really needs to happen is you need to have another bill and go methodically through things and actually expand gun rights without requiring more regulations in most of these places. Maybe tackle a few of these other things that we might not like or whatever, but make it where it just totally needs to be dismantled and done all over again. It doesn't need to be massaged, like Bob Ballinger said, which that kind of creeps me out. Anytime you're talking about massaging a bill, well, that's weird. But anyway, it just, like I said, the whole thing was an embarrassment. It was not done professionally. It was not done. It was just trying to pass something complicated. Let's worry about the rules later, and let's go beat our chest over what we did.
All right, so moving on, we're talking with Senator Bryan King, giving us that enhanced carry update, and just what a complete mess it is. I mean, it's the definition of spreading your tentacles and getting bad results elsewhere you didn't anticipate, and that is government in a nutshell. So I want to pivot now to the headline from today. Speaking of getting bad results elsewhere, state Medicaid rolls cut by 2,900. Now, that's the main headline. The sub-headline by Andy Davis is, for the year, 73,000 enrollees were found ineligible or removed. I don't know why that headline is not on the top, because that is the one that reports what a terrible job the government's doing. And then, Brian, yet in this article, they find a way, Asa Hutchinson and the rest of them, to spin this like they're actually doing a good job. And it's just maddening, because this is the result of everything we've predicted of how big government program doesn't deliver.
Yeah. And let me tell you something else. Asa Hutchinson is once again misleading, deceiving people. If he has a problem with me saying that, then let's come with the facts. He knew about this problem 2.5 years ago. His people knew about the problem 2.5 years ago. Let me even roll back the clock farther when Jonathan Dismang and John Burris went down there trying to promise everybody a great verification system. Where's the accountability to Jonathan Dismang, who always makes sure his friends are taken care of, and John Burris, who now receives checks off the same company he did the legislation? So I'm asking on Twitter, like I said, thank goodness for Twitter, you can use this stuff. He's always on Roby Brock. I asked Roby Brock, why don't you ask John Burris, who's bragging about this on Twitter, how many millions of dollars, tax dollars, did Centene pocket off the people on ineligible enrollees for years?
Yeah, that's exactly
And that's
right.
why Centene won't pay the money back. But I doubt Roby Brock's going to do that.
Yeah, that's a big problem when you think about, and even Cindy Gillespie, I believe the head of DHS, she even mentions that, well, we've got to get this right because this is what's so maddening. We've got to get this right because whether or not these people go to the doctor, we're paying their premium anyway. And it's like, are we just now realizing that that's a problem? I mean, are we just now realizing that that's a big, problem?
If she was working for a real-world company and had that kind of attitude over this looting, literally, folks, let me tell you something. They have been backing, you want to look at an analogy, they have been backing Brinks trucks up down there at DHS, and millions, hundreds of millions have been looted out of Medicaid.
Yeah.
You know what? And then now she's just getting it. I mean, and we're paying her thousands of dollars more. But Asa Hutchinson knew about this. He knew about it.
Yeah, well, so the question is, like you were saying, how much did taxpayers pay for the $73,000 that were on there that weren't supposed to be, and how long?
Guess what?
Yeah.
We're going to have something come out on that. Now, I know Roby Brock and the mainstream, news down there is going to totally ignore it, like they've ignored everything else. Okay, and they don't write the right stories, and they don't really write what's going on. But I'm going to have something come out on that. And,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so that's a great question. I mean, we got to know the answer to that, because that's just complete waste. And like I said, those headlines should have been reversed. But they made
it as soft a story on the things down there as they possibly could.
Yeah, so more questions here. How much was the software to get us here? We know what a debacle that was. Why were they allowed on the program in the first place? Okay, how many more are ineligible that we don't know about yet? And the point is this: government always works this way. They grow government entitlements, they screw it up, then they make a tweak, and then they want to be worshipped like they're
breaking their arms.
Yeah,
they're breaking their arms trying to pat themselves on the back for a problem they ignored, lied, and covered up about, and allowed to go happen way far too long, and can't tell you or don't want to tell you what they've been doing. I mean, it is just, and the news media down there lets them get away with it. And John Burris on Twitter,
saw that.
Just ask, hey, John, let us know. How many millions of dollars did Centene pocket off this? Because folks need to understand in our Medicaid expansion, we're doing this higher cost, higher priced insurance scam Medicaid expansion. So somebody can still move here in Arkansas, live here for 2 weeks, turn around and leave, and Blue Cross Blue Shield and Centene still getting a check from you guys.
The last couple of news days, I was saying this yesterday especially, I think it might have been the busiest news day of the year, especially when we had news break of a Missouri I guess plea where a guy by the name of Don Jones from Philadelphia was pleading guilty to essentially using nonprofit money out of Missouri-based healthcare group. Alternative Opportunities, are now Preferred Family Healthcare is what they call themselves, to lobby government politicians for more grants and things like that. Did you follow that story at all, Bryan? And I mean, it's ensnaring Arkansas politicians. And then I even covered the fact that, you know, we mentioned Jeremy Hutchinson. It's interesting that in 2013 he sponsored a bill to just commend, or a resolution to commend, Alternative Opportunities for what amazing work that they're doing. And yet that's the same company now that's under FBI investigation, for what I can tell. I mean, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying something for years. There's been something going on. Of course, you get ignored, ostracized. Oh, it's Bryan King's angry again. Let me tell you something. There's a swamp down there. And now they're just now coming out, and they're forced. They didn't cover it. They're not doing anything about it. Legislators have been covering it up down there for years. I mean, just look at what's come out so far. Michael Lamoureux gets a $120,000 check out here from a consulting deal. You know, Jake Files, Gilbert Baker. I mean, and now, you have the actual thing happen with some of this, big Medicaid company, which maybe have more interesting stories.
Yeah, and they say it goes all the way to D.C. There's unnamed congressmen in the plea, and there's unnamed state representatives of Arkansas. And I just think to myself, your Medicaid disclosure bill would have busted all this wide open had it been a policy or a law that was in place. Had it been a part of the code, this would have been, or even a rule in the House or the Senate or the Assembly, this would have taken care of it. They would have had to have disclosed this stuff.
Yeah, 4 times, folks, this failed. 4 times this has failed down there in one way or another. But yet, all of a sudden, when all this starts going, and they can't keep it contained like they want to and everything, then the Senate caucus puts out a thing. They're committed to integrity. Once they can't keep it contained, and they can't keep it down, and they can't keep it under wraps, then now all of a sudden they're all ready.
Yeah.
And so anyway,
well,
I just am like, literally, this can't get any worse down there in Little Rock about the leadership down there and what's going on. And I'm going to tell you, there's more possible pay-to-play, and I say possible pay-to-play things, and I'm not so sure, that Asa Hutchinson doesn't need to answer some questions on some things. Jonathan Dismang needs to answer questions.
Well,
now, John Burris needs to answer questions, but he will not get them asked by Roby Brock.
Oh, yeah. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. All right. So shifting gears, Senator Bryan King, real quick. We got a minute or 2 minutes left. So shifting gears, we've been having Arkansas politicos on and just asking them what Christmas means to them. So a lot of your colleagues have done it, and so just feel free, real quick, tell our audience what does Christmas mean to you, Senator Bryan King?
That means celebration of a birth and Savior Jesus Christ. That's number one. I mean, the one that gave his life on the cross for us and died for our sins. And I'm certainly a very flawed person, and need forgiveness, and it should be humbled and everything like that. And that's number one, what we should think about. And number two, it comes about in our family lives and personal lives, and how we can use that celebration and recognition for him in our own lives.
Yeah. Well, I certainly appreciate that answer, Senator Bryan King, and I just want to wish you a very Merry Christmas to you and your family, sir.
Okay, Merry Christmas to you, Paul.
All right. Thanks you so much, Senator Bryan King. Everybody, we got to go to break.